The great crystal towers of Vextar Prime stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, beings from across the galaxy had gathered for what many considered the most important meeting in 1,000 years. The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the voices of 847 different species, each speaking in their own language through universal translators. At the center of the massive room, a holographic display showed a small yellow star and its 9 planets. Earth looked insignificant among the countless worlds represented in this chamber. Yet this tiny blue marble had become the subject of heated debate across the entire galaxy. Admiral Crixtal of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the speaking platform, his forearms gesturing at the display. His silver skin gleamed under the chamber's lights as he addressed the council. Fellow beings, we can no longer ignore the Terran problem. These humans have spread across 17 star systems in just 50 years. They build colonies wherever they please, with no regard for established territories. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The hegemony of pure thought represented by tall, pale beings with enlarged heads nodded in unison. The insectoid Kretok delegation clicked their mandibles in approval. Even the peaceful Centaurian traders, who rarely spoke at council meetings, seemed concerned. Crixtal continued his presentation. Look at their technology. Chemical rockets for short distances. Basic fusion drives for longer trips. Their weapons are nothing more than metal projectiles and primitive nuclear devices. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no gravity manipulation. They are at least 500 years behind our most backward member species. The hologram showed images of human ships captured by long-range sensors. The vessels looked crude and bulky compared to the sleek designs favored by advanced civilizations. Their hulls were simple metal alloys painted in dull colors. No elegant force fields surrounded them, no exotic matter drove their engines. These humans, Crixtal said, his voice filled with disdain, have the audacity to establish colonies in the Kepler sector. They ignore our warning beacons. They refuse to acknowledge our territorial claims. They act as if they own the galaxy. A representative from the methane world, speaking through a translation device that converted his thoughts into audible words, added his concerns. My people have monitored human transmissions. They speak of something they call manifest destiny. They believe it is their right to spread across the stars. They show no respect for species who have traveled space for millennia, before their ancestors even discovered fire. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates called for immediate military action. Others suggested economic sanctions. A few voices urged caution, but they were quickly drowned out by calls for decisive action. War Commander Zeth Moros of the Hegemony stood to address the council. His presence commanded attention. Standing 3 meters tall with skin like polished obsidian, he was known throughout the galaxy as a master strategist who had never lost a battle. The Hegemony offers to resolve this situation. Give us authorization, and we will deal with these upstart humans once and for all. What do you propose? Asked the council's elderly president, a being so old that his original species was no longer certain. A simple demonstration of superior power, Zeth Moros replied. We will position a fleet at the edge of their home system. We will give them one chance to withdraw all their colonies and return to their single planet. When they see our might, they will surrender immediately. All primitive species do. The Zephyrian admiral supported this plan. The humans have never encountered our level of technology. Their largest warships are smaller than our escort vessels. A single Hegemony dreadnought could destroy their entire fleet. Across the chamber, delegates from various species voiced their agreement. The consensus was clear. Humanity needed to learn their place in the galactic order. They were newcomers, barely evolved beyond throwing rocks at each other. They had no right to challenge civilizations that had mastered space travel, while Earth was still cooling from its formation. The vote was called. 847 species voted to authorize the hegemony action. Not a single delegate opposed the measure. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would be given 1 galactic standard year to withdraw to their home system. If they refused, they would face the consequences. As the council session ended, delegates began filing out of the chamber, satisfied that they had handled the situation appropriately. The humans would learn, as all primitive species eventually did, that the galaxy belonged to those strong enough to take it and smart enough to keep it. War Commander Zeth Moros remained behind, studying the holographic display of human space. His tactical mind was already planning the deployment, 200 ships should be more than sufficient. The humans would see his fleet and immediately realize the futility of resistance. It would be quick, clean, and educational for other young species who might harbor similar ambitions. What none of the council members knew was that deep in a place called the asteroid belt, humans were working on something that would change everything. They had been preparing for this day much longer than anyone realized. While the galaxy's greatest minds debated the fate of an apparently primitive species, that species was putting the finishing touches on the most advanced weapons of war ever created. The monitoring stations at the edge of human space had already detected the hegemony scout ships. Human intelligence services had been tracking the council meeting through methods the aliens couldn't imagine. Earth's governments had known this day was coming for decades. In secret facilities scattered throughout the solar system, the final preparations were being made. Admiral Rebecca Torres, a woman whose name was unknown to the Galactic Council but would soon be spoken with respect and fear across the galaxy, was reviewing the reports from Project Olympus. Everything was proceeding according to schedule. The Galactic Council had made their decision based on what they could see. Unfortunately for them, they were about to learn that appearances could be very deceiving. Humanity had spent 50 years letting other species underestimate them. That time was about to end. As the great crystal towers of Vextar Prime darkened with the planet's sunset, none of the departing delegates suspected that they had just declared war on a species that had been preparing for this moment since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered who else might be out there. The universe was about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that looks like prey. The Galactic Council had just poked a sleeping giant, and giants do not wake gently. Captain Sarah Chen floated in the zero gravity of the construction bay, watching the most beautiful and terrifying sight she had ever seen. 8 kilometers of metal, composites, and technology stretched before her, a ship so large it seemed to bend space around itself. The vessel was not yet complete, but already it looked like something from humanity's wildest dreams of conquest among the stars. "Status report, Commander Zhang," she said into her comm unit. "Hull completion at 94%, came the reply from the construction chief. "Weapon systems installation at 87%. "We're still on schedule for the deadline, Captain. She'll be ready." Sarah smiled grimly. The deadline was not some arbitrary construction milestone. It was the day the Galactic Council expected humanity to surrender. Instead, it would be the day they learned what humans were truly capable of. The ship before her was designated HMS Olympus, the first of 12 Titan-class warships that represented 50 years of human engineering, determination, and carefully hidden genius. While the galaxy saw primitive fusion drives and kinetic weapons, they had no idea what humanity had been building in the shadows. Admiral Rebecca Torres approached through the construction bay, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal walkway. At 62 years old, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, and her dark eyes held the intensity of someone who had never lost sight of their goal. "How does she look, Captain?" Torres asked, joining Sarah at the observation window. "Like nothing the galaxy has ever seen, Admiral. The metamaterial armor alone should be enough to shock them. But when they see what our weapons can do..." Sarah's voice trailed off. Torres nodded. "The aliens think in terms of energy shields and plasma weapons. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. They have no concept of what we've developed." The HMS Olympus was a masterpiece of human innovation. Her hull was composed of materials that existed in theoretical physics textbooks, but had never been successfully manufactured by any known civilization. The humans had not only created these materials, but had found ways to mass-produce them. The ship's armor could absorb and redirect energy in ways that would make alien shields look like tissue paper. But the armor was just the beginning. Hidden throughout the massive vessel were weapon systems that would redefine space combat. Gravitational lance arrays that could create localized distortions in space-time. Kinetic bombardment systems that accelerated projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers that could cut through any known material with surgical precision. "Admiral," called Commander Patricia Williams from the communication station. "We're receiving updates from the other construction sites. Titan 2 through Titan 12 all report similar completion rates. The fleet will be ready." Torres walked to a holographic display showing the positions of all 12 construction sites scattered throughout the asteroid belt and outer planets. Each location had been carefully chosen and camouflaged. To alien observers, they appeared to be nothing more than mining operations or scientific research stations. 50 years, Torres said quietly. 50 years since we made first contact and realized we were not alone. The first alien probe that entered our system expected to find a primitive species throwing rocks at each other. Instead, they found us waiting. Sarah remembered the stories from the history books. The alien probe had been captured intact, its crew taken prisoner, and its technology studied in facilities that officially did not exist. Humanity's leaders had made a decision that day. They would let the galaxy underestimate them while they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The captured aliens had eventually been released with their memories altered, convinced they had found nothing but a backward species barely capable of spaceflight. They had reported back to their governments that humanity posed no threat. The deception had worked perfectly for 5 decades. During those 50 years, human scientists had reverse-engineered alien technology, while simultaneously developing innovations that no other species had imagined. They had learned to manipulate gravity, to fold space, to create artificial materials with properties that defied conventional understanding of physics. The hegemony fleet is massing at the edge of their territory, reported the communications officer. Intelligence estimates 200 ships, including 16 dreadnoughts. War Commander Zeth Moros is personally leading the expedition. Torres smiled coldly. Zeth Moros, the undefeated strategist. He's about to learn why humans study the art of war differently than other species. The aliens approached warfare like a chess game, with predictable moves and established rules. They had been fighting each other for so long that their tactics had become ritualized. Energy weapons at maximum range, shield walls to absorb damage, boarding actions to capture vessels intact. It was civilized, orderly, and completely inadequate for what they were about to face. Humans had studied every recorded battle in galactic history. They had analyzed alien tactics, identified weaknesses, and developed countermeasures. More importantly, they had created entirely new forms of warfare that had never been used in space combat. Captain Chen, take us out for the first full systems test, Torres ordered. It's time to see if our theories work in practice. The HMS Olympus disengaged from the construction platform and moved into open space. Her engines, based on exotic matter manipulation rather than simple fusion, produced no visible thrust signature. To any observer, the massive ship would appear to be moving by unknown means. Weapons test, Torres commanded. Target the designated asteroid cluster at coordinates 77 Alpha. The asteroid cluster was located 50,000 kilometers away, roughly the same distance at which alien fleets typically engaged in battle. The HMS Olympus rotated slowly, bringing her primary weapon array to bear on the target. Gravitational lance, minimum power, called the weapons officer. Space itself seemed to shiver. Reality bent and twisted as the weapon created a localized gravity well that compressed matter beyond the theoretical limits. The asteroid cluster, containing rocks the size of small mountains, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but compressed into a point of such density that it collapsed into a microscopic black hole before evaporating in a burst of Hawking radiation. The bridge crew stared at their displays in stunned silence. They had known what the weapon was designed to do, but seeing it in action was something else entirely. That was minimum power, Sarah whispered. At maximum power, Torres said calmly, we could crack a moon. Similar tests were being conducted throughout the solar system as the other 11 Titan-class ships completed their trials. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of human achievement, a concentration of technology and firepower that no single alien species could match. The aliens were coming to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they were about to receive an education in why certain species should never be underestimated. The Galactic Council had declared that humans were primitive and insignificant. They were about to learn how wrong they were. War Commander Zeth Moros stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and studied the tactical display showing the edge of the Sol system. 200 ships of the Hegemony battle fleet hung in space behind him, their weapons charged and ready. Each vessel represented the finest military technology the galaxy could produce. Together, they formed a force that could conquer entire star systems. Yet something felt wrong. Long-range sensors detect no human military vessels, reported his tactical officer, a young Hegemony graduate whose pale skin glowed with excitement. Only civilian traffic and orbital installations around their home planet. Moros frowned. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had never encountered a species that failed to mass their forces when threatened. Every civilization, no matter how primitive, at least tried to defend themselves. The humans appeared to have simply given up. Perhaps they are more intelligent than we assumed, suggested his intelligence officer. They recognized the futility of resistance. No, Moros said slowly. Something is not right. Humans have been expanding aggressively for 50 years. That does not suggest a species that surrenders easily. The massive hegemony fleet began moving deeper into the solar system, maintaining standard battle formation. Their energy shields glowed softly around each vessel, creating a wall of force that could deflect any known weapon. Plasma cannons charged to full power, ready to demonstrate the price of defying galactic authority. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we're receiving standard civilian traffic, commercial vessels, scientific expeditions, passenger transports, no military communications at all. This was unprecedented. Even the most cowardly species attempted some form of negotiation when faced with superior force. The humans seemed to be going about their daily business as if a massive alien fleet had not just invaded their home system. "Take us past Jupiter," Moros ordered. "If they want to pretend we do not exist, we will remind them of our presence." The hegemony ships moved through the outer solar system, their sensors mapping every asteroid, every orbital station, every human installation. Everything appeared exactly as their intelligence reports had indicated. A young civilization with basic technology and no significant military capability. As they passed Jupiter's orbit, the fleet's formation tightened. Standard doctrine called for maximum intimidation when dealing with primitive species. The sight of 200 advanced warships should be enough to convince any rational being that resistance was impossible. Then space shimmered. It happened so quickly that most of the hegemony crew missed the initial moment. One instant they were looking at empty vacuum. The next instant 12 massive shapes had materialized around them. Not emerged from hyperspace, not decloaked using conventional stealth technology, but simply appeared as if reality itself had been rewritten. "What in the name of the pure thought?" Moros began, then stopped as his tactical display processed what it was seeing. The human vessels were impossible. Each ship measured approximately 8 kilometers in length, dwarfing even the largest hegemony dreadnoughts. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating dark silhouettes against the star field that hurt to look at directly. No energy signatures were visible. No plasma trails from their engines, no electromagnetic emissions of any kind. "Sir," his tactical officer said, voice cracking with disbelief, "the computer cannot classify these vessels. They do not match any known technology in our databases." Moros had commanded fleets for 3 centuries. He had faced every type of vessel the galaxy could produce. He had never seen anything like the 12 dark giants that now surrounded his fleet in perfect formation. "Open communications," he ordered, fighting to keep his voice steady. "All frequencies." The response came immediately, broadcast on every possible channel simultaneously. The voice was calm, professional, and spoke perfect hegemony standard despite the fact that humans were not supposed to know their language. "This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Human Defense Fleet. You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. You have 1 opportunity to withdraw." The bridge fell silent. Moros stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. The human fleet had appeared without warning in a formation that surrounded his 200 ships. That level of tactical coordination suggested planning and preparation, far beyond what any intelligence report had indicated. "Human vessels," he broadcast back. "You are outnumbered 20 to 1. Your primitive technology cannot hope to match the might of the hegemony. Surrender immediately and your species will be treated with mercy." There was a pause. When Admiral Torres responded, there was something in her voice that Moros recognized from his centuries of warfare. It was the sound of a predator that had cornered its prey. "Commander, your intelligence is 50 years out of date. You are not facing the primitive species your reports described. You are facing humanity. And we have been preparing for this day since the moment we knew you existed." The tactical display suddenly lit up with weapon locks. Every one of the 12 human vessels had targeted multiple hegemony ships simultaneously. The computer estimated that each human vessel was painting targets with over 30 separate weapon systems, types of energy the hegemony computers could not identify. "Impossible," breathed the tactical officer. Sir, these readings cannot be correct. The weapon's signatures do not match any known technology. Zethmoros felt something he had not experienced in over 2 centuries. Fear. Not the healthy caution of a professional soldier, but the deep, primal terror of realizing that everything he thought he knew was wrong. Admiral Torres, he transmitted, perhaps we can discuss terms. The Galactic Council is reasonable. We can negotiate a peaceful solution. The time for negotiation was before you brought a war fleet to my home system, Torres replied. You came here to teach humanity a lesson about power. Very well. Allow me to demonstrate what we have learned. The lead human vessel, designated on their screens as HMS Olympus, began to rotate slowly. As it moved, space around the massive ship began to distort visibly, as if reality itself was bending to accommodate its presence. All ships, emergency power to shields, Zethmoros ordered. Prepare for combat. His fleet began to spread out, trying to avoid the obvious trap they had sailed into. Energy shields flared to maximum strength, plasma weapons charged to full power, and 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships prepared to face 12 vessels from a species they had dismissed as primitive. Admiral Torres's voice cut across all frequencies one final time. Gentlemen, ladies, let's show them why you don't poke sleeping giants. All ships, you are weapons free. Fire at will. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The hegemony fleet, confident in their superior numbers and technology, was about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. The war that was supposed to last minutes and end in human surrender was about to begin, but it would not end the way anyone in the Galactic Council had predicted. The first weapon fired was unlike anything in the galactic military archives. Instead of the brilliant plasma streams or particle beams that characterized civilized warfare, space itself seemed to twist and tear. The HMS Olympus had fired its gravitational lance array, and reality responded by creating a localized distortion that grabbed the nearest hegemony cruiser and compressed it into a point smaller than an atom. The cruiser did not explode. It did not burn or break apart. It simply ceased to exist, crushed by artificial gravity into a microscopic black hole that lasted for exactly 0.003 seconds before evaporating in a burst of radiation. War Commander Zethmoros stared at his tactical display in horror as one of his ships vanished completely. Not destroyed, not disabled, but erased from existence as if it had never been built. All ships, evasive maneuvers, he screamed into his communications system. Return fire! Return fire immediately. The hegemony fleet began to move, their elegant formations dissolving into chaos as captains tried to avoid whatever weapon had just annihilated their companion vessel. Plasma cannons fired in all directions, energy beams lancing through space toward the 12 human ships. The alien weapons struck their targets perfectly. Plasma streams that could melt through asteroid shields hit the dark hulls of the human vessels. Particle beams capable of cracking planetary defenses found their marks. Energy weapons that had won 1,000 battles across the galaxy struck with devastating accuracy. Nothing happened. The human ships continued their advance as if the most powerful weapons in galactic civilization were nothing more than flashlights. Their strange hulls absorbed the energy attacks completely, showing no damage, no overheating, no stress of any kind. Impossible, whispered Zethmoros. Nothing can absorb that much energy. His science officer, normally calm and analytical, was frantically working at his console. Sir, the human vessels are not using energy shields. Their hulls appear to be converting the plasma directly into some form of stored power. Our weapons are feeding their systems. Before Zethmoros could respond, the human fleet opened fire in earnest. 12 ships unleashed hell itself upon the hegemony fleet. Gravitational lances created tears in space-time that swallowed entire squadrons of alien vessels. Kinetic bombardment systems fired projectiles accelerated to 30% of light speed, moving so fast they appeared as brief streaks of light before punching through alien hulls as if they were made of paper. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers sliced capital ships in half with surgical precision, the beams so focused they could cut individual components from a vessel while leaving the rest intact. The weapons were not just powerful, they were impossibly accurate, striking critical systems with targeting precision that suggested the humans knew exactly how alien ships were constructed. Within the first minute of combat, 15 hegemony vessels had been destroyed. Not damaged, not disabled, but utterly annihilated by weapons that operated on principles the galaxy had never seen. "Sir?" His tactical officer reported, voice shaking. "Our shields are completely ineffective. These weapons ignore energy barriers entirely. They are striking our hulls directly." Zethmoros watched in growing horror as his carefully organized battle fleet dissolved into a panicking mob of ships trying desperately to escape weapons they could not understand or defend against. Vessels that had conquered star systems were being swatted from space like insects. The HMS Olympus fired again, this time using what the humans called a reality anchor. Space folded around a hegemony dreadnought, creating a pocket dimension that removed the massive ship from normal spacetime. The dreadnought found itself trapped in a bubble of altered physics, where its engines could not function and its weapons could not fire. "What is happening to the Resolute?" demanded Zethmoros. "Sir, the dreadnought appears to be elsewhere. Our sensors can detect it, but it is not occupying normal space." "It exists, but not here." The battle, if it could be called that, continued for exactly 17 minutes. In that time, the most powerful military force the hegemony had ever assembled was reduced to 23 heavily damaged vessels fleeing in complete disorder. Ships that had never known defeat were running from an enemy that fought with weapons from beyond their comprehension. "Emergency hyperspace jump," Zethmoros ordered. "All surviving vessels retreat immediately." His flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was one of the few ships still capable of faster-than-light travel. Half of his bridge crew was dead, killed when a human kinetic projectile had punched through 17 decks without slowing down. Atmosphere was venting from dozens of hull breaches, and his engines were operating at 12% efficiency. As the surviving hegemony ships prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Torres's voice cut across all frequencies one final time. "War Commander Zethmoros, you will deliver a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them that humanity is not the primitive species they believed us to be. Tell them we have been preparing for this day since we first learned we were not alone. Tell them that we could have destroyed every ship in your fleet, but chose to let you live so you could carry this warning." The human admiral paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Tell them that if any alien force enters human space again with hostile intent, we will not be so merciful. We will not limit ourselves to defending our home system. We will demonstrate that humans can reach anywhere in the galaxy, at any time, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop us." The surviving hegemony vessels jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of what had been the most powerful battle fleet in their military. As they fled, the 12 human Titan ships simply vanished again, disappearing into whatever dimension they had emerged from. Zethmoros sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed the empty space where his fleet had been annihilated. 3 centuries of military service had not prepared him for this. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had made it clear that they could have done much worse. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving priority transmissions from Hegemony Command. They are demanding a full report on our victory over the primitive humans." Zethmoros almost laughed, but the sound came out as a broken sob. Victory. His superiors were expecting news of a glorious triumph over an inferior species. Instead, he had to report the most devastating defeat in hegemony history. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them to mobilize every ship in the fleet. Tell them to contact the Galactic Council immediately. Tell them that humanity is not what we thought they were." He paused, remembering the impossible weapons, the ships that absorbed energy like living things, the casual demonstration of power that had crushed his fleet like insects. "Tell them," he continued, "that we have awakened something that should have been left sleeping. And tell them that I do not think we can put it back to sleep." The damaged hegemony ships limped toward their home space, carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The war that was supposed to last minutes had indeed ended quickly, but not in the way anyone had expected. Humanity had revealed itself, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after the disaster in the Sol system, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. But this time, they were not meeting on Vextar Prime. Instead, the most powerful beings in the galaxy had traveled to Luna, humanity's moon, at the express invitation of Admiral Rebecca Torres. The council chamber had been hastily constructed in the Armstrong City complex. its transparent dome offering a clear view of space where 12 dark shapes hung motionless against the starfield. The human Titan-class warships maintained their positions like sleeping giants, their presence a constant reminder of the new reality facing galactic civilization. Admiral Torres stood at the speaker's platform, her simple gray uniform contrasting sharply with the elaborate ceremonial dress of the alien delegates. Behind her, a holographic display showed star charts spanning half the galaxy, marked with red indicators that told a story of systematic military destruction. "Honored delegates," Torres began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "Thank you for accepting our invitation. I know this meeting was not scheduled through normal diplomatic channels." The hegemony delegation, what remained of it, sat in stunned silence. War Commander Zeth Moros was not among them. He had resigned his commission and retired to a monastery, claiming he could no longer trust his understanding of military reality. His replacement, a younger officer named HFY, watched Torres with the wary respect of someone who had studied detailed reports of the Sol system battle. 3 months ago, Torres continued, your council voted to authorize military action against humanity. You believed we were a primitive species that needed to be taught our place in the galaxy. That action has had consequences I do not think you fully understand. The holographic display changed, showing a tactical overview of hegemony space. Red markers indicated the positions of major military installations, fortress worlds, and fleet bases. Every single marker was crossed out. In the weeks following your attack on our home system, human forces visited each of these locations. We did not occupy them. We did not establish colonies. We simply demonstrated that we could reach them whenever we chose. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The hegemony's military infrastructure represented thousands of years of construction, fortifications that were considered impregnable, weapons platforms that had never been successfully attacked. The fortress world of Kethmar, Torres said, highlighting one marker, has never been conquered in its 2,000-year history. It fell to human forces in 47 minutes. The Omega Station defense platform, armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon, was neutralized in 12 minutes. The Grand Fleet assembly yards at Vorthkai were disabled in 31 minutes. Commander HFY of the hegemony stood to speak. Admiral Torres, how is this possible? Our intelligence indicates that humanity possesses only 12 of these advanced vessels. Even with superior technology, 12 ships cannot be in dozens of locations simultaneously. Torres smiled, and the expression sent a chill through every delegate in the chamber. Commander, your intelligence is 50 years out of date. You have been observing the primitive species we allowed you to see. The reality is somewhat different. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing the Sol system. But instead of the empty space the aliens expected, the display revealed hundreds of installations scattered throughout the asteroid belt. Hidden bases on the outer planets and construction facilities that dwarfed anything in galactic civilization. Project Olympus was never about building 12 ships, Torres explained. It was about building the infrastructure to build as many ships as we needed. The vessels you encountered were merely our first production run. The chamber fell silent. The mathematical implications were staggering. If humanity could construct Titan-class warships in quantity, they could challenge the entire galaxy. But Admiral, interjected the Zephyrian representative Admiral Krixtal, such an industrial capacity would require resources beyond what a single star system could provide. Even with advanced technology, the physics of construction limits what any species can achieve. That would be true, Torres agreed, if we were limited to the resources of one star system. However, humanity has been expanding for 50 years. We have established colonies in 17 systems, as your council noted. What you did not realize is that every one of those colonies includes industrial facilities designed to support our military infrastructure. The display showed human space in its true scope. What the aliens had seen as simple agricultural colonies and mining operations were revealed to be sophisticated industrial complexes, hidden shipyards, advanced manufacturing centers, and research facilities that had been developing new technologies while the galaxy dismissed humanity as primitive. We allowed you to underestimate us, Torres continued, because it served our purposes. While you debated our significance, we were studying your civilizations, learning your weaknesses, and preparing for the day when contact would become conflict. We knew this day would come because we understand something about galactic politics that you seem to have forgotten. She paused, looking directly at each delegation in turn. Power is not granted. It is taken. And it is kept by those strong enough and smart enough to defend it. The council president, the ancient being whose species had guided galactic affairs for millennia, spoke for the first time. Admiral Torres, what is it that humanity wants? Territory? Resources? Tribute? We want what every species wants, Torres replied. The right to exist. The freedom to expand. The opportunity to reach for the stars without asking permission from those who got there first. She gestured toward the transparent dome, where the 12 Titan ships hung in space like dark prophecies. We did not seek this conflict. We would have been content to expand peacefully, to trade with other species, to contribute to galactic civilization as equals. But you declared us primitive and insignificant. You voted unanimously to force us back to our homeworld. You sent a fleet to demonstrate our powerlessness. The Admiral's voice hardened. You made this personal. You threatened our families, our children, our future. So we responded in the only way that ensures such a threat will never be made again. Commander Cathavor stood again. What assurance does the Council have that humanity will not use this power to dominate other species? Your capabilities far exceed anything we have ever encountered. Torres considered the question carefully before answering. Commander, in the past 3 months, human forces have demonstrated the ability to strike any target in this section of the galaxy. We have disabled military installations belonging to the most powerful civilization known to exist. We could have destroyed those installations. We could have eliminated entire populations. We chose not to. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from across the galaxy. We are not interested in conquest. We are not interested in ruling other species. We are interested in being left alone to pursue our own destiny among the stars. Grant us that respect, treat us as equals, and you will find no better allies. Continue to threaten us, and you will discover that our restraint has limits. The vote, when it came, was even more unanimous than the original declaration of war. Not a single species voted against recognizing humanity as a full member of the Galactic Council. The motion to offer Earth the position of military protector of the galaxy passed without debate. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many glancing nervously at the Titan ships visible through the dome, Torres remained behind. Captain Sarah Chen approached from her position near the communication station. Do you think they understand, Admiral? Chen asked. Torres watched the alien ships departing Luna orbit, their crews no doubt eager to return to home space and report that humanity was nothing like what they had expected. They understand that we are dangerous, Torres replied. Whether they understand that we prefer not to be is another question entirely. But they will learn, Captain. One way or another, they will learn. Above them, the 12 Titan-class warships began to move, taking up patrol positions at the edge of human space. They were no longer secret weapons waiting to be revealed. They were guardians, standing watch over a species that had announced to the galaxy that Earth's children would bow to no one. The universe had learned a lesson that day about the dangers of underestimating others. Humanity had been dismissed as primitive and insignificant. Instead, they had proven to be the most formidable military power the galaxy had ever seen. The Galactic Council had sought to put humanity in its place. Instead, they had discovered that humanity's place was wherever humans chose to make it. And that place, it seemed, was among the stars themselves, as equals to any species that had ever dreamed of touching the infinite. The day humanity's Titan Warship Armada shook the universe was ending, but the age of human expansion among the stars was just beginning.